can't forget that when it comes down to it, we're dealing with human beings, and everyone deserves to be seen, to be valued, to be loved, to be respected.
A conversation is one of the ways we get to know and understand each other. When faced with division, it's one of the ways to uplift unity. The Aiken Department of Public Safety and members of the community they serve came together for a conversation based around 6 questions that get to the heart of who they are, what they're passionate about, and what they hope for. This is Uplift Unity, presented by the Aiken Department of Public Safety.
I'm Charles Barranco. I live in Aiken, South Carolina, and I'm honored to be the Chief of Public Safety.
I'm Everett Chandler, born and raised in Sally, South Carolina, and I have a small law firm, the Chandler Law Firm in Aiken, South Carolina.
What's your story?
My story is I am fortunate enough to grow up in a community where I felt loved, in a family where I recognized not only my responsibilities but opportunities that were given to me. I was encouraged to go to college after graduating from high school. Went to college at Wofford College, had some great mentors there. Went to North Carolina Central University School of Law, and Barbara R. Morgan gave me an opportunity to come back home and prosecute. Served as a prosecutor from '98 to 2005, and then I opened up my law firm. Even before I had opportunity to serve with members of our community, with the Men's and Women's Advisory Board. We did a lot of work together where we worked with different agencies, and I knew when I opened up my firm that I wanted to continue the tradition of just giving back and serving and trying to bring the collective together so we can work together.
Tell me about your family.
I'm a son of a preacher man. My mom had a small beauty shop right next to the house. I played with the kids that came by, who visited or who came with their mothers, and I played with those kids. And we spent all day in church. My father pastored 4 churches, so we traveled from parts of Saluda County, Edgefield County. He had a church in Lexington before I was born, but Aiken County primarily. And I spent all the time in church, summer revivals, and I was the typical preacher's kid. But again, just listening to my folks, my mom had a small business, she had a beauty shop. She probably comped a lot of hairdos to take care of single mothers, young ladies trying to go to school, and encourage a lot of the children in the community. And with both of their careers, I knew that there's a responsibility that comes when the good Lord provides you opportunity to serve. My father always said that if you love what you do, it's such a great gift. And man, I can't even imagine, I can't even come up with words to describe what I get to do and what I love to do and what I'm able to do as a result of it.
It shows.
Yes. What is your story, Chief?
My story is I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, and committed to coming to USC Aiken sight unseen on a soccer scholarship. And I know it was by the grace of God, truthfully, that got me here. And my intentions were to come to Aiken and then transfer back to Carolina and continue that out. I knew in a short period of time that I didn't want to leave this special place. There's a knot in the Penland building at USC Aiken, and that knot is the physical picture of the universities tied to the community. And I didn't really understand what that meant, but I understand it so much more today. And I think about it often and talk a lot about it because how we do our business every day, just what you've described, it's all about relationships. Absolutely. And how we're tied to the community. I found my wife here at USC Aiken.
How about that?
And it'll be 25 years this year, and so honored to have found her. We don't have any 2-legged children. We have 4 4-legged children, and so we chase those around. And but honored to serve here in this community. I've learned so much from it, the humility and grace that people share with us here at Public Safety, and me personally has shaped me greatly.
Tell me about your community in Columbia that you grew up in.
I grew up near Forest Acres, near Richland Mall, and I'm the oldest of 3 children and 2 younger sisters. And actually, something that most folks don't know about me, I was actually a twin.
Wow.
And my twin died at birth.
Okay.
And but I think about him often in the spirit and how it helped develop me. And then growing up with all the women in the house, I think also shaped me in dealing with some of the situations I found myself in. So.
That's great. That's great. That's great. I have 2 sisters, and I didn't know you did, so I know exactly what you're talking about, growing up with women in the house. Yes. Chief, is there a moment in your past that had a significant impact in shaping who you are today?
In 2005, I was fortunate enough to go to work with our friend, Sheriff Michael Hunt, at the Aiken County Sheriff's Office. And late in that year, he asked me to go and manage the detention facility. And I was part of the tracking team. I was part of the warrant team. I worked the street for over 8 years. I had incarcerated people before, but didn't know what that meant after dropping them off at the jail. And it changed my life. Seeing the men and women that were incarcerated, seeing the men and women that worked in the facility to try to help them. They're human beings, and they have feelings and needs and children and families, and so really absorbing that and trying to understand that and breaking it down to just saying good morning to folks or good afternoon to folks and seeing their face light up. It really changed some perspectives for me, and good, bad, or indifferent, they changed. And so I can't tell you how many people that since then, that time, have come up to me. I may not even recognize them or remember their name, but they would say, "Hey, Captain Barranco, I remember you speaking to me that morning," and it really helped me get through that day. And so what we do and say to people means something. Yes. And so it really taught me a valuable lesson. What about you?
You know, it's very difficult to think of one significant event, and even though that is the question,
Sure.
Because I just feel like I benefited from so many things that happened. But when I think about folks who deposited in me, and I can almost do a roll call,
Yep.
but I wouldn't want to, because I would definitely leave out some very precious people in my life. But just thinking about folks who always invested in me, you know, it gives you a very strong sense of purpose and responsibility and almost indebtedness. So it's almost, you can't give too much when folks have poured themselves. Every teacher, every preacher, every aunt and uncle, of course my parents, my sisters, my wife. It is amazing. And because of that, you know, you almost feel like there's not enough time, enough hours in the day to give back, having experienced such love, such care, such concern for your safety, your welfare, and your future.
Well, I've been fortunate enough to work with you,
Yes.
Both as a prosecutor and a defense attorney, and you've always shown how you treat people that exact way. And so you need to know, because sometimes we don't always hear the positive things. It's obvious that you invest back into people.
I appreciate that. I remember when I heard that you were given the position of chief, and I thought, wow, I didn't even know you were in contention. But I found Richard Pierce in the street, and I said, Richard, wow, I did not know you guys even were thinking about Charles. But I couldn't find a better person to serve, who I know cares, because I've had a chance as a prosecutor and a defense attorney to see people in law enforcement, and there's no one who recognizes that the people that we interact with every day, who I used to prosecute, now that I defend, are people who deserve to be valued, who desire to be loved, and something you just said, just to be recognized as a person. And man, when you can do that, it just means so much, and it makes everything else we do easy.
Is there something that you've dreamed of doing for a long time? If so, Why haven't you done it yet?
It would be to be a public school teacher.
Oh, okay.
I just can't afford to do it. I cannot afford to do it simply because, for law school loans and a lifestyle that I've built, it just won't, it's not conducive. Fortunately, in our community, teachers and principals give me opportunity, coaches, to speak to young people, and I don't have the daily challenges, that a teacher would say, yeah, right, Chandler, you do this every day and you'll know. I don't have that, but man, there's no greater feeling than to connect with young people and know that you're depositing something inside of them. I think we can't compensate our teachers enough. We certainly can't. We certainly would. They would say we could try. We could try a little bit. We can't compensate them enough because of the value that they bring. But I can't think of a more fulfilling job. And I'm telling you, I saw my kindergarten teacher at the Piggly Wiggly in Wagner, South Carolina, and it was like, wow. You look at them almost like demigods because of the way they took care of you. That's right. They're an extension of your family, and I just think it's fulfilling. And you just deposit so much. And even the feeling I had when I saw Miss Webb in the Piggly Wiggly and speaking with her, it just means a lot. It really does.
If there was something that I've dreamed of doing, I think it would, my wife and I have discussed this many times, is going back to where my ancestors came from, Palermo, Sicily.
Oh, wow.
And I haven't done it because, of course, it'd take a lot of time and effort away from here yet. But hopefully I'll get that opportunity. I think it's important for us to know where we've been and where we've come from to understand where we're going. And so those my great-grandparents that came over here and laid the groundwork for what we have today, thankful for, and like to learn more about it.
That's so powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is, because it's nothing like the perspective of your roots and even being able to appreciate others as well. Yeah, but I did not know you were Sicilian. I'm not saying that would explain anything, but other than the flavor that you bring each day.
Yeah, I'm not carrying any violin cases.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. If you asked for a miracle, what would it be and why?
I think we've sort of talked a little bit about it, but so many times there's a label put on everything, whether it's a perception, whether it's something that's real. But if we could take some labels away and get to the root of folks and understand them before any labels are attached, I think we'd be a lot better off. It would help us in understanding the men and women that we get to live around and spend time with, but I think also it would help us a lot to speak genuinely, to understand. I mean, in the world we live in today, I can't fully understand the shoes that you have walked in. And so being able to have frank conversations, and I'm fortunate to have friends and acquaintances that are willing to have those discussions, and it does help give people perspective. So I would say taking labels away.
I love that. I love that. Wow. And to join in this current climate, you would want folks to look at each other and love each other, and just appreciate them as a human being, and then have the trust to say, I don't know what it means to be a person of Sicilian background, but I'm going to ask you some questions, and by the way, they may be offensive, but know that I come in a spirit of love. That's right. And so I love the concept of the labels, because then you're not restricted. But it takes so much trust to have those type of conversations. You and I and Sheriff Hunt have had some very frank conversations, and we've been able to have them in the spirit of the fact that we know we care about this community, we know care about each other, and we're all just trying to do the best we can, but the labels sometimes really do stop us from it. I absolutely love that, because it would free us up to be able to see each other as creations, and my faith tells me a person that Jesus Christ died for.
Amen.
And if that person is valuable, certainly that person is valuable enough for Jesus Christ to die for, certainly valuable enough for me to love and recognize.
Well, to the preacher's son, amen.
Amen. Amen.
Everett, when you think about all the important issues facing our country, is there one you think about the most? If so, why, and what would you like seen done with it?
I'll tell you, to be honest, I think it's social justice, and sometimes the issues that we attack sometimes are the ones we're best suited because they're in the spotlight. And the reality of it is, for a long time, there have been a lot of people, not in my community. You know, I'm shielded. I've been shielded from that. My immediate community, I'm talking about Sally, but there have been a lot of people who look just like me who've been complaining about just some horrendous things.
Sure.
And because of cell phones, because of camcorders, I'm going back to the 90s, these things have been able to be captured. And I know that just like me, there have been a lot of well-meaning folks who said, hey, look, wow, if people just said yes, ma'am, and yes, sir, if people just did right and didn't get in trouble, you wouldn't have this. But, you know, I've seen a state trooper shoot a guy while you saying sir. You know, we've heard guys who couldn't breathe die at the hands when they were extending it. There's something else going on here.
Sure.
The stress that I've seen, and almost it's become a part of me, that folks have, where we are, the talk that my father gave me, hey son, don't ever, I know they'll hand you that, you put it in the bag and you always ask for a receipt, because you have to have it, and I don't care if your friends don't.
Sure.
And to now have an opportunity while the spotlight is on, for us to really look at it. And maybe you don't understand it if it's not your, I'm learning more about it because there are a lot of things I have experienced, but those things I haven't.
Right.
And if you just listen to your fellow citizen, and it's not about people trying to destroy the police.
That's right.
It's not about people trying to attack law enforcement. It's just about folks saying, you know, look at me as a person, just like what you did at the county jail. Yeah. And there are a lot of people who do it. I mean, that's why I love the Police Athletic League.
That's right.
You don't know the number of your guys that used to come back and say, Everett, I need you to help this young man, and because his mother's crack addicted. And I mean, you know, and it's beautiful, you know, to see one of your guys, big burly white guy, getting, upset about the life and the future of a young black kid. You know, it means something to me, because it means that we have seen the humanity in the person. And so, as I've shared with you and Sheriff Hunt, every community doesn't have you and don't have a Sheriff Hunt. And so in these communities where we lack it, let's get some understanding. Let's realize that there's some people who are hurting. There are communities where they're not getting enough health care.
That's right.
They're not getting the services that they used to, that folks should get. That's right. And if you could just listen and come up with some legislation that would protect those. It's tough.
It is.
It's tough. I mean, it's tough because it forces somebody to say, hey, look, I wasn't paying attention. It forces me to say, hey, look, I missed that. And it's tough, but we have to do it.
That's right.
We absolutely have to do it.
No doubt.
What about you? What are your thoughts?
Well, thinking about this question, I really think it goes back a little bit to the labels discussion, but and being able to, I say all the time when we come to the table, a lot of times there's a disagreement that brings us to the table, but truthfully, we have a lot more in common. And if we can start with what's in common and work towards a solution that you're just talking about. And so I think that one thing in our country right now is we are divided in so many ways. I'm not divided from my friend Everett, but there's a perception of a division in the African American community and law enforcement. And so there's a division in so many different, it could be political, it could be so many different ways. And so I wish there was a way we could come and take these dividers out
Yes.
and sort of start over.
I think you've hit on it. I think if we focus on what we have in common and not be committed to the division, there's some people who profit from it.
That's
There's some people who make their life off of it. But if there's some solutions on the table when we know, I know we talked about teen centers and things like that, that we all agree is a need, I think that's where we start.
That's
We
right.
start there and then be able to bring in services to bridge the gap. But the willingness to come to the table, it means a lot, because there are so many who are so convinced
That's right.
in their greatness and their fairness and their,
Sure.
wokeness, that they're not able to do something as simple as sitting down,
That's right.
shutting up, and listening to the person on the other side of the table. What is the most surprising thing that someone has ever done for you?
It's one of those times when you don't expect somebody to come up and say something, how you've impacted their life. And in particular, it has to do with my job. I know there's folks I get calls from and say, 20 years ago you helped me change a tire on the side of the road. Or Captain Barranco, I remember you from the detention center and you spoke to me. Those things that nobody had to do, nobody owes anything to me like that, but it humbles you, and it really gives you faith in what humanity does have.
Yes.
So, how about you?
Wow. I mean, to be as blessed as I am but I think it comes back to folks coming back and saying thank you for things that you forgot about. You were just trying to do the best you can.
Sure.
But you said something earlier. Not everybody says thank you, and sometimes we're our hardest and worst critics. We're always saying that, did I do this well enough? Did I do that? And sometimes it's surprising when somebody comes back and says thank you.
That's right.
And says you did a great job, and especially someone who you prosecuted and sent to jail.
Yeah.
And that happened too.
Yeah.
He said, you were my solicitor, and I went to jail.
Wow.
Yeah, I went to prison, and it saved my life.
Wow.
And I would tell you, that's surprising, because
Yes.
you kind of brace yourself. Where do I know you from? I don't know. I don't know where you know me from. But people don't have to tell you that.
That's right.
And when it comes from somebody like that, it really does mean a lot. And it encourages us when we're not perfect, maybe when we miss the mark, sometimes encourages us that at least we're trying. And at least we're trying, at least our heart is in the right place.
If we can't have these conversations, can you imagine living in a place where I couldn't say to Everett, I don't fully understand, but I need some help understanding because I'm dealing with a situation. If I didn't have folks like yourself to come to, or others, trying to have what Harry Dolan calls empathy, it'd be very difficult to do this job. And so feeling and having a safe zone, and not just with folks I've known for a long time, but in an area where, to have mutual respect for each other, and understanding, I think is valuable to do away with some of the divisive or divided issues that are in our country today.
And likewise, I do believe that a conversation allows us to sit down and be able to take the punches, because there's a trust factor
That's
there.
right.
And you may hear some stuff that say like, hey guy, you got me wrong.
That's right.
That's not where I am and that's not who I am, and how dare you say that? But still be able to sit back and say, this is how he or she feels. Let me take it in, let me soak in, let me look at it from their perspective.
That's right.
Let me see if I can follow your pain. And you can't do that unless you sit there talking to each other, because if you're switching, the stations are so polarized that, you switch to different stations and they're just talking to each other and high-fiving each other. Nobody's coming to any conclusions, and we have too much at stake.
That's right.
And we have to have these conversations if we're going to live in what Dr. King called the beloved community.
Yeah.
I think it may not be a beloved community until we move to that great beyond, but I think we can come as close as we can if we sit down and we talk to each other, we respect each other's positions, and I'll stand up from the table, but at least I will walk away knowing that I've been heard by somebody who cares about this, the perspective that I'm coming from, who sees me as a person, a human being that deserves to be loved, valued,
right.
acknowledged, and also protected just like each and every person. And if you walk away and you feel like you've been heard, I think that that's all it takes. I'll say this, when I was a prosecutor working for Barbara Morgan, I would have some of the toughest victims that would give me just the business, and we would then sit down, and of course, the boss has to come in. Barbara would sit down, and when they walked away, they would laugh, and they would smile, and they would be happy, and nothing had changed.
That's right. That's right.
But there was no indictment, or there was the person wasn't going to jail for a long time. But what I realized is that she looked at them, and rather than telling them what it was, she listened to she followed their pain. She listened to where they were coming from. She spoke to that broken, that hurt, that anger. She spoke to that place. And it's a lesson that I learned as I manage people in my office, as I serve in different capacities with different organizations in the community, that you can't forget that when it comes down to it, we're dealing with human beings, and everyone deserves to be seen, to be valued, to be loved, to be respected.
Absolutely. Goes back to that Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Right
here.
It's right there.
It's right
And it's everything is right there.
That's right. We're better together.
We're better together.
We're better together.
We hope you enjoyed that Uplift Unity conversation presented by the Aiken Department of Public Safety, and it inspires you to have your own. Don't forget to subscribe for more of Uplift Unity. Hit the notification bell too. Visit our shop at upliff.com to get your Uplift merch. And if you'd like to be on Uplift Unity, sign up at upliff.com. Thanks for watching.